Okay, so this is just a short video, and it's not necessary that you watch it, but it will definitely help you understand what my rationale is and where I'm coming from with respect to some test items, some review items, and some expectations that I have. And I use a lot of research to construct my classes, and that has to do with teaching, learning, cognition in the brain. And this one's by Daniel T. Willingham, and it's called Why Students Don't Like School. And the long subtitle is A Cognitive Scientist Answers Questions About How the Mind Works and What It Means for the Classroom. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this book, and there's a lot of stuff I'm going to leave out. But there's one little passage that I want to focus on, Chapter 2. And it's the question that he raises here and is trying to answer in this chapter is, how can I teach students the skills they need when standardized tests require only facts? Okay, so my tests, of course, have a mixture of items in them, but I want to go more in depth with this question and then give you this answer and then this quote, and then I'll just say a couple of things in relation to my class. So I'm not going to read all this and then expound a lot. I'm going to read this and then make one or two points, but I think you'll be able to draw some conclusions or inferences on your own and make sense better of how I operate. So there's a question here. So reading right here. Much has been written about fact learning. Most of it negative. The narrow-minded schoolmaster demanding that students parrot facts they do not understand has become a cliche of American education. Although the stereotype is neither new nor exclusively American, Dickens used it in Hard Times, published in 1854. Concern about fact learning has intensified in the last 10 years as the new emphasis on accountability in education has brought an increase in the use of standardized tests. It is too often true that standardized tests offer little opportunities for students to analyze, synthesize, or critique, and instead demand the mere regurgitation of isolated facts. Many teachers feel that time for teaching skills is crowded out by preparation for standardized tests. How useful or useless is fact learning? So when I'm talking about fact learning, you're learning facts about philosophy, right? You're learning that there are these, that you've learned about these 5 definitions. So it's a fact that the definitions I've given you are definitions given by philosophers about philosophy. That's a fact. It's a fact that, it's a fact that there's something called intellectual virtue that's of interest to philosophers. It's a fact that there are certain branches. It's a fact that certain branches, are interested in certain questions. Well, whatever we bring up here about fact learning, I want you to think about the definitions. So the definitions that I give you in this class, they are fundamental and powerful concepts, starting presuppositions or assumptions that we do not question in and of themselves. Rather, we use this as conceptual tools to build the skills that we're going to need to think about things or through things or to evaluate and critique and analyze like philosophers. So his answer is this. There is no doubt that having students memorize lists of dry facts is not enriching. I 100% agree with that. I don't have you remember definitions just for the sake of that. That is not enriching. I can train a parrot to do that, and obviously you guys aren't parrots. So that would be irrational, right? Now, what I do want is to make sure that we have, to the extent that wording matters, have the same exact, clear, precise understanding of how we are using certain terms, since they are fundamental and powerful in how we apply and do the more enriching activities incorporated in this philosophy class. So he says, it is also true, though less often appreciated, that trying to teach students skills such as analysis, i.e. argument analysis, such as analysis or synthesis, in the absence of factual knowledge is impossible. Research from cognitive science has shown that the sorts of skills that teachers want for students, such as the ability to analyze and think critically, analyze arguments, evaluate philosophical theories, listen to dialogues to see who's manifesting or failing to manifest an even intellectual virtue. So again, let me repeat that. Research from cognitive science has shown that the sorts of skills that teachers want for students require extensive factual knowledge. The cognitive principle that he says is going to glue his chapter together, and that I want to glue together your experience of the class, my requirement that you do have, certain definitions in mind, is this: factual knowledge must precede skill. That is why in the argument module and the intellectual virtue modules is that I give you definitions first, right? He says the implication is that facts must be taught, ideally in the context of skills and ideally in the beginning. And so, as you saw, I do teach you about argument. I do present to you argument definitions at the very beginning of the semester. I want you to remember the most of the words in each of those definitions for argument and the main definition for given in each intellectual virtue. I want you to remember the key words, which are all of them, because I've already reduced it to the the gist, because each of those words names a fundamental and powerful concept in how we're using that term. Now, am I making you learn definitions and memorize them the way that I want you to memorize them just because? No, that's not very enriching. I'm making you do that, again, to make sure that we all have the same clear, accurate, and precise understanding, and to increase the probability that you're applying them as such. Now, while factual learning, or for me, definition learning, may in some way precede or immediately precede my attempt to get you to develop the related skills, really, most of you are going to finesse or fine-tune your ability to really understand at a deeper level the definitions, and hence your ability to apply them in more of a ping-pong manner. So you get a definition, not quite sure what that refers to. Then I see an example. Then I go back to the definition to see how it relates. Then I get to try to apply the definition. Of course, you can apply the definition only to the extent that you remember the fundamental and powerful concepts, and hopefully the two come together, they become one, interlocking like this, right? The same definition that we all have in mind, with the core powerful concepts coming together to make beautiful application exercises. Well, that's what I wanted to emphasize to you. This might help you understand where I'm coming from. And I do try to make my teaching transparent. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that is to base my teaching and curriculum choices on research, and to start sharing with students why I do what I do. My sense is that a lot of students would be more up for the challenge and feel more positive, and maybe even embrace challenge more if they knew the why. So that's what I'm attempting this year. Okay, so I guess that's all I have to say about this. Read what I have either below or above the video about test 2 feedback.